The ending of this video, my god, it's just going to be insane, crazy. You're not going to want to miss out on this, trust me. What's up everyone, James here, and today we are back with G.I. Joe versus the Transformers 2. If you haven't seen the first video, the link will be in a pinned comment below. So, returning where we last left off, with Team 3 arriving at their destination. Initially, Spirit doesn't believe that they're on Earth, but Dr. Mindbender assures him they are on Earth in what seems to be a post-apocalyptic future. What the team will eventually learn is this is precisely 20 years in the future where Shockwave has conquered Earth. It's wild. Now, the other two members in this team, new to us in this series, is first Barbecue. He is an adventurous former Boston firefighter who comes from a family of multi-generational firefighters. He joined the army and eventually became the Joe's firefighter. Second, also new to us, are the identical twin brothers, Tomax and Zaymont. I'm counting them as one member. The only way you can tell the brothers apart is Zaymont has a scar on his face, but other than that, they're alike in every way. They both served in the French Foreign Legion, and afterward successfully transitioned to mercenaries for hire. In time, they joined Cobra, becoming their experts in law and finance, and commanders of Cobra Commander's Crimson Guard, basically Cobra's elite guard. Before Team 3 can explore this bleak future, they're immediately discovered and attacked by the Decepticons sweeps. One thing I want to point out here that honestly kind of sucks is at the end of the last video, which is the end of the second issue in this series, they teased that there would be skyscraper-sized bots in the next issue. And even the cover of the following issue, it teased that a massive bot would appear. Now, this massive, awesome-looking bot wasn't dubbed a name until 2015 in the Facebook blog Ask Vector Prime, where they named him Ragnarok, a powerful Decepticon made out of bombs and lasers and is able to make copies of himself. If that's not OP, I don't know what is, but he's become one of my favorite Decepticons. That's why we saw multiple skyscraper-sized bots in the end of the last video. Now, why he wasn't utilized, I couldn't find out, but maybe either Dreamwave or Devil Deuce Publishing didn't want to go further with that, or the writer of this series, Dan Jolley, didn't know what to do with him. Who knows? They ended up replacing him here with the Sweeps, who are Scourge's minions, but I don't think any of these are Scourge. Either way, it doesn't matter because they are suddenly shot out of the sky and Team 3 discovers they were saved by the Dreadnoks. Torch, Buzzer, and Ripper here seem to have changed a lot and are part of what seems to be Earth's resistance force. The last time we saw them, they already had cybernetic enhancements, but now they seem to have gone through even more upgrades. Another thing I want to point out is the motorcycles they are riding are the Junkions. They even mention later that they found them in a trash heap, which is funny because as we know, their home world is a junk world. But them riding the Junkions could imply that they must have come to Earth at some point and maybe they were defeated by Shockwave. The Dreadnoks are surprised to see Team 3 here, seeing as though they mentioned they saw all of them die 15 years ago. Sometime later, the Dreadnoks received the info dump from Team 3 on how and why they are here. Now, in the past 20 years, we're going to learn a lot has changed on Earth, like who the Dreadnoks say is their boss and is the leader of what's left of Earth's resistance force. The Dreadnoks introduced Team 3 to Duke, who looks like he's been through hell. Like, this man has lost 3 limbs, half his face is scarred, and it seems like he has to use a voice modulator of some sort to speak. All of this has majorly changed him. After Spirit and Barbecue explain to him that they've come from the past to retrieve the displaced Transformer that's here, and that if they don't, Earth will go through a nuclear holocaust, Duke calls it all BS. He doesn't believe it because in this timeline, a global firestorm never happened, but what did happen was an invasion. He tells them August 17th, 2014, known as Hell Day, is when Shockwave conquered Earth and killed everyone. That the Transformer they're looking for, the Dreadnoks, and him are all that's left of Earth's resistance force. Duke essentially tells them he doesn't care what they've come to do. He offers them a choice, either stay and fight or leave. This just shows how far Duke has fallen. He has become consumed by all he's lost and this war to the point that it's blinding him to the fact that they might be able to prevent all of this from happening. Now, Spirit and Barbecue do wonder why the nuclear holocaust didn't happen. Mindbender explains what could have happened is all the teams were successful in bringing back the Transformers, but Shockwave must have gotten through Ultra Magnus' shield and defeated them. After that, he took control of Teletran 3, mastered the teleportation tech, and invaded Earth. As Team 3 is about to leave the base, Torch stops them and tells them that he's lost everything these past 20 years, and if there's a chance that this can all be prevented, he's willing to help. From here, we return to Cybertron for a brief moment. Honestly, I was originally going to skip this, but I decided not to because I want to show you all how ruthless Shockwave is as a leader of the Decepticons. As the Decepticons are attacking Ultra Magnus' shield, Cyclonus informs Shockwave that Magnus' field generator has depleted, and now he is forced to use his own energon to keep his shield going, but soon it will fall. Shockwave says, "You are a good and loyal servant, Cyclonus. Your life is assured for another cycle." This is the big difference between Megatron's rule and Shockwave's rule. Where Megatron's rule is emotionally fueled, Shockwave's is cold and calculating. He isn't emotional. He wants results, and if you're not able to give them to him, he won't hesitate to annihilate you, or at least experiment on you. Back in the future, Torch is leading Team 3 to the missing Transformer. He explains that this Transformer arrived 2 years ago and is their most fearsome fighter. That lately he's been fighting where it's thickest. When Spirit asks what's the bot's name, Torch replies, "We've never known. We just call him the Autobot." Now, none of you are prepared for which of the Autobots this is. Suddenly, they're all attacked by a huge swarm of Insecticons. Now, these are clones of the Insecticons, but they're still very dangerous. At that moment, Tomax and Zaymont reveal they've upgraded both their bodies with Cybertronian tech. Their arms connect and they both unleash this massive blast that obliterates most of the Insecticons. Torch uses an EMP grenade and the group makes a run for it. They run into a nearby forest, and even there they're not safe because they run into a group of clones of Ravage. Out of nowhere though, some of the clones are blown away and the rest make a run for it. Now who did this? Well, the missing Transformer and the last Autobot standing, Ratchet. Now Ratchet being the last Autobot left is awesome, and here's why. Ratchet isn't known as a warrior amongst the Autobots. I mean, there was this one time in Marvel's Transformers, he beated the brakes off of Starscream, but for the most part, he's known as the healer, the chief medical officer of the Autobots. But in this alternate, terrible future, he's changed, and has been forced to become a deadly warrior. This whole thing is like an alternate version of Transformers Last Bot Standing that we've covered on the channel. If you haven't seen it, I'll put it in a pinned comment down below. I hope in the future we get another version of that that's similar to this. I would love it. Later, after hearing from Team 3 on why they are here, Ratchet, unlike Duke, does believe their story for the most part. However, he tells them that he isn't going anywhere until he saves a group of human slaves that are operating a factory Shockwave is using to strip Earth of every last resource. That currently there is another group of humans there waiting to be taken to the disintegrators. The team agrees to help him. Soon after, they reach the facility and ambush the bots guarding it here. The team successfully sets the humans free, and the mission really goes off without a hitch. But what's cool and yet crazy here is the glimpse we get of how much Ratchet has changed. During his fight with the guards here, we see he's in some sort of berserk state, to the point that while fighting the guard here, he nearly smashes the guard's body on top of Team 3. He's yelling at the guard, "You won't beat me, you won't," and ends up blasting him apart. What we can surmise here is either Ratchet has been scarred psychologically from losing those he cares about, to the point that in order to prevent that from ever happening again, he loses himself in battle. Or another possibility, he preps himself to go into a berserk state before every battle. Now after the mission, Ratchet tells Spirit he won't be leaving. The gamble that they might be able to stop Shockwave in the past, he considers to be too great a risk, when here in the future from his perspective, he can for sure save people and make a difference. He tries to walk away, but Barbecue is done asking. He hits Ratchet with the teleporter disc, and they're all sent back to the past. This is where it gets even more insane. Once they arrive in the past, Ratchet gets blasted from behind by Shockwave, who says, "Ratchet, I always hated you." Team 3 quickly realizes Shockwave got through Magnus' shield, took him out, and captured Perceptor. Now, Tomax and Zaymon try to link up and do their mega combo, but Shockwave is like, "Nah, son," and annihilates one of them right on the spot. He captures and secures Team 3. He reveals to Perceptor that he orchestrated basically this entire thing. He made sure the human researchers discovered and developed the teleportation tech, and that Cobra Commander found out about this. So when Cobra Commander was successful in creating his wormhole network on Earth, he would use that network to invade Earth. But since that isn't happening, what he's going to do now is take advantage of the chaos and block the last team from ever returning and let the nuclear holocaust happen. That way Earth will be served up on a silver platter for him. Dude, Shockwave is just so awesome, and this was just pure genius. Now, if you're wondering what happened to the Joes and Cobras forces that were in Magnus' shield, Shockwave mentions that once his force field collapsed, an explosion occurred and they all escaped in the chaos. One thing I want to point out here, because it's just so weird, all the time displaced bots that returned and were also in the shield basically disappear from the rest of this story. I don't know if Dan Jolley forgot about them or he just didn't know how to intertwine them into the rest of the story, but they won't show up until the end. Anyways, we go to the Joe and Cobras survivors hiding underground. Some infighting happens until Storm Shadow interrupts. He reports while they were all escaping, he stayed and saw Shockwave lock down Teletran 3 and saw the exact sequence he used to do it. It's crazy he's saying all this normally while his back is just heavily scarred, most likely from a blaster shot. Even CoverGirl is shocked at the sight of this and is like, "Dude, you're back." Beachhead proposes sending a couple of them through the conduit shaft they came down from so they can sneak to Teletran 3 and reverse the lockdown. However, to avoid detection, they can't have any gear or any metal on or within them. The only two who end up meeting that criteria are Lady J and Roadblock. Minutes later, they successfully make their way up the conduit shaft to the top of the tower where Teletran 3 is. Now, what happens next, some of you might have mixed feelings on, because it's kind of ridiculous and funny. Roadblock creates a distraction so Lady J can reach Teletran. He runs up one of the Decepticons here, and I've never seen this before, but for some reason this bot has a blaster that looks like a pistol. Roadblock climbs up the Decepticon, grabs its blaster, fires it, which sends him flying across the room. Once he's on his feet, he's able to lift his blaster and just start shooting up everywhere, and it starts hitting some Decepticons. Meanwhile, Lady J makes it to Teletran 3, and for some reason Starscream tries to warn Shockwave, but it's too late. Lady J successfully unlocks Teletran 3, and a huge flash of light occurs. The final team is able to return, and the bots they return with is the Dinobots, son! The Decepticons are shocked and quickly realize they are Grimlock beats the brakes off of Shockwave, sends him flying out of the tower. A quick thing to mention here, this is basically the origin of the Dinobots in this universe, because Grimlock says Teletran 3 reformatted him and the other Dinobots into these dino forms. So more than likely the Dinobots had standard Autobot forms, but when they were sent back to prehistoric times, they took the forms of the dinosaurs. These might be the most powerful version of the Dinobots though, because they are cutting a swath through all of the Decepticon forces here. It's incredible. They are absolutely demolishing them. The Decepticons end up falling back and the Dinobots are victorious. The next day, Optimus thanks Cobra and the Joes for all they did. He asks what he can do to repay the debt, and the Joes just ask him to eliminate any teleportation gates between Cybertron and Earth. Optimus assures them that he will and tells them they have to make sure they destroy all traces of the teleportation tech on Earth. Now, as they all are about to head into the portal and return to Earth, the Baroness asks Cobra Commander, "What about your pet Starscream?" Cobra Commander answers, he escaped the destruction when the Dinobots appeared. The Baroness then points out that he seems so calm about losing such an ace in the hole. Cobra Commander only says they can keep him. Why he's so calm about losing his own personal Transformer is going to get answered in a bit, because from here we go to Shockwave undergoing repairs. Starscream is brought before him, and he begs for his life, saying that he was forced to do the humans' bidding and wants to return to the Decepticons. After a moment of thought, Shockwave accepts him back into the ranks. At that moment though, a recording of Cobra Commander starts to play out of Starscream's frame. He says, "I imagine you've returned to your Cybertronian compatriots. Allow me to address your superior. Starscream has been an unending thorn in my side. He would have killed me if he had the chance. And at this point, he's become worthless. But it's nothing 45 pounds of plastic explosive I house in his frame can't fix." Suddenly, a huge explosion occurs. The top of Shockwave's tower is blown to bits. Finally, Cobra Commander gets his moment in this series. Now we go to 3 months later. Something very interesting happens. Dr. Mindbender in a maximum security prison receives some visitors. They say they're from the NSA and are here to transfer him. Later, he ends up in some Arctic secret compound somewhere. Mindbender suspects that they aren't really NSA, but he has no choice when they tell him to take this elevator to level 17. Once he reaches it, he comes across these dead bodies and begins to panic. He then is shocked at the sight of beings he's never seen before, Pythona and Nemesis Enforcer. Pythona says, "With your assistance, Doctor, we shall open the dimensional doorways wide, so that both Earth and Cybertron will crumble before the combined power of Unicron and the kingdom of Cobra Law." That's the end of the video and the end of the second series of G.I. Joe versus the Transformers 2. I really enjoyed this series, really especially too here at the end. It was amazing, these last 2 issues. If you want to see the third series, make sure you smash that like button, comment down below, and subscribe if you want it as soon as it drops. We'll get into who Cobra Law is in that series. Other than that, have an awesome day, and remember, Yo Joe, transform and go beyond. See you later, Beyonders.